Hey guys, welcome to my review of The Marvels. So, first of all, I just want to say if you're a huge Marvel fan, I don't know that I'm for you. And if you are also a massive Marvel hater, I'm also not probably the person for you. I don't really care a ton about Marvel. I do like Marvel. X-Men was some of my favorite movies growing up. And, Iron Man, Captain America, Winter Soldier is probably one of my favorite movies. Endgame, Infinity War, some Civil War, really loved it. Anyway, so that's kind of where I stand in the whole scheme of things. So I saw the Marvels coming out. As far as Disney shows, I've watched Loki season 1 and 2, WandaVision, great shows. Didn't care too much about the Falcon and Winter Soldier. Didn't think it was that great. She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, not really interested in those shows. So going into this, I didn't have a ton of, build up and lead up into what was going on in this film. I saw Quantumania. I can't remember what the most recent. I think I've seen all of the Marvel movies at this point up until this movie. But as far as TV shows, I had missed a couple. So going into the movies, I didn't have super high expectations. I actually had pretty low expectations. I saw the trailers and I wasn't super enthused, super impressed with what was going on. It seemed like a girl power team. Not that there's anything wrong with female characters. I know that some people get really mad about that. Or the character's just bad because, it's not whatever they did. Anyways, I don't want to get into the gender thing because that really didn't matter. And I was a little bit worried about that because it can come off as campy. It's just as campy as it is when they have a team of dudes just going in there because they're dudes and they're all, macho dudes and they're going to do a thing. I think that I was surprised at how unique Miss Marvel was. First of all, I'll just say that. Standout character, Miss Marvel. I apologize. Your trailer looked dumb. I didn't want to watch your show. However, standout character, funny. She's the Peter Parker of that team. It worked really well. I was laughing. I thought it was fun. Some of you guys might disagree with me, but I actually thought that, and I was worried that most of the jokes would land flat. However, they almost all landed, I think, pretty well. I think some people have been unfairly harsh on some of the jokes as far as the cats and the eating the people and some of the potential outcomes of all those cats running around on Earth and all that. And that's whatever. That's not really. Let's talk about the good first. I'm not going to go into potential improvements right now, but I just want to say it was a good movie. The action was pretty fun. It didn't turn into kind of like a Man of Steel, people just punching each other, but nothing really lands. It seemed like the fights were pretty well done. It didn't feel like a CW show. The choreography was good. It was a little bit confusing, and this was maybe potentially something that they could have done better. And I was going to wait on that, but something that could have been maybe explained a little bit better was the whole swapping when they use their powers thing. Because it seemed like every time they were going to use their powers, they should have swapped. But then you find out oh, no. It's only if they use their power at the same time, then those ones swap. So that's where I don't think it was super clear going in. But I thought it was a fun film. It was goofy. That's the thing. My wife, she loved the Singing Planet. I'm going to try not to spoil anything. It'll be kind of vague, but I mean, that is a little bit of a spoiler. There was, I thought that was goofy. It didn't last too long. I didn't think the joke was overdone. It was enough to get through it, to still be silly without being get it? It's so funny, isn't it? I think it was enough just to be kind of funny and silly without being overburdening with that joke. Another thing that I just want to say was CGI I thought was pretty well done. There was no standout thing where I was like, "Ooh, what happened there?" They really cut corners on that shot or whatever it was. I thought the CGI was pretty good. I thought that Monica Rambeau was fun. Captain Marvel I think was okay. The best that I've seen her, at least. They almost developed her personality, but she's getting there. And that's the thing is I think she's a cool actor. I like the movies that Brie Larson is in. However, I know that some of the stuff she said on other stuff, I don't really care that much about actors say outside of a movie. So as far as her character, I liked her in Scott Pilgrim and some other movies, but I think that it wasn't really her fault. I think the scripts have really not helped her create a character yet. And so I think they're getting closer. Yeah, I thought the story was good enough. It reminded me, as far as like depth wise, maybe like Guardians of the Galaxy 1, but it didn't have the great music of that to distract you from the fact that the plot is unbelievably simple. And I think that's where maybe some of the complaints are coming, is that like the plot is extremely simple, and they also don't really explore too deeply the things that are going on personality wise. But let's push through the last of the good stuff before I get into maybe some of the things that could be improved. The relationship between all of them, I think they worked well together. I think, like I said, honestly, Miss Marvel really brought the energy. She brought the she brought her A game, dude. The actress did awesome. She really brought her A game. She nailed her timings. She put her all into it, and that was honestly like very clear to me on screen that like she went all in. I was just surprised. I thought the fight scenes were fun. It was an interesting thing to have them swap places. And like I said, I had really low expectations. I thought it was going to suck. I thought it was going to be cringy. Maybe some of you guys thought that. I didn't think that going. I had fun. I had fun with my wife and some friends that we went with. And I think all of us surprisingly liked it. I think, two of the people that we went with actually expected to have a bad time and were pleasantly surprised. And that's always a great thing. So now into maybe some of the things that could be improved. There is a scene in the movie where things are falling apart. They're trying to save these refugees, and they're about to take off on this spaceship. And some of the people haven't made it onto the ship yet. And Miss Marvel says, we can't leave these people, they're still out there. We got to save them. And Captain Marvel says, we have to save who we can. If we stay, everyone will die. And that's that. And they never returned to it. And I was like, what? Why don't you guys have a conversation about this later, like on the ship or something, right? Because that's an interesting way to distinguish your characters. That's an interesting personality trait to have. That's what made Iron Man and Captain America so engaging and so intense and so fun to watch and probably write as well. Because right now, Miss Marvel, Rambo, and Captain Marvel are all kind of the same. I don't want to say personality, but they have the same way they think. They all always agree. They all think that the same right thing is the same right thing. And I think I think it would have been an interesting opportunity to have Miss Marvel say, have that conversation on the ship of like, I think we could have saved more people. You don't know that we had to leave right that second to save everyone. And she can just, she could come back and say, you know what? I understand why you think that way, but, I can't have that on my conscience, like having people die that I could have saved because I was trying to save everyone. I don't know. I thought that could have been a really interesting way to even have a scene where both of them are right and showing that they both think differently and they're both right, if that makes sense, right? Like have a scene where Captain Marvel was going to head out and Miss Marvel decides to stay and she ends up saving more people that Captain Marvel wasn't going to save because she thought that was the last chance, right? Maybe she figures out some way to get out even though Captain Marvel decided to leave. And then maybe there's another scene where later she tries to save everyone again and she fails and people die because she didn't leave earlier, right? And then they can both kind of see the flaws in each other's thinking, but also like, that's the kind of person that they are, and that's the way that they think. That was the biggest moment, I think, to me, that was a huge fail as far as they really could have developed some characters, and there wasn't a whole lot of character developing going on. Captain Marvel is a pretty bland character, and that's the writing's fault. In my opinion, that's the writing's fault. I don't think it's the actress's fault. I think that there's an emotional scene where they get off the ship, and Captain Marvel is upset because they call her the Annihilator. And it was a little bit set up, but the emotion there was over the top and the expectation of the audience to kind of gravitate and latch onto that, I think was unearned. It just wasn't there for me. It felt a little bit random. I think they could have done a lot better at making it seem like it. I mean, when they do say it to her, you can tell it bugs her, but it would have been nice to have her say things when people say that to her, when they call her the Annihilator, and she can just try to justify, and maybe people always throw it back in her face and she can't really justify what she did, right? And maybe anyways, I think there was opportunity there. I think it was unearned, but that they could have developed her character a little bit better as far as having that kind of thing really bother her. You know, having basically a little bit of self-doubt. Right now, Captain Marvel is that irritating, I'm always right, I do whatever I want, whenever I want character, and I'm unstoppable. And I don't know. I just felt like that was a really missed, could have gone a lot of places in it, and it really went nowhere. They just had a little cry session. Everything was fine. Monica Rambeau, I like the character. I really liked her in WandaVision. I think that she's a good actress. I think she was just kind of there in this movie. I didn't mind her being there. I think she was cool. But as far as character development or reasoning why she's there, it was just like, oh, I guess just cause. There really wasn't a whole lot for her to do that she would be necessary for. That was just my feeling. And like I said, that's just my opinion. It doesn't make it right. But I hope that they develop her as a character. They really had the opportunity to sell that whole, right? Like it bugged her that Captain Marvel never came back. And she was blipped and she came back and Captain Marvel still wasn't there. Like that would hurt. That would hurt. And like, instead of them working through a problem where like Captain Marvel doesn't like when people think poorly of her, they kind of have a little conversation, but like there's so much more that could have been there. That could have been a good conversation that I just feel like they rushed past. And I think that's really where it came down to, is I really enjoyed the hour 45 minute runtime. I don't think it needed to be longer than that. However, I would have spent another 15 minutes to see some character development. It didn't need to be drama. It could have been character development. And that's the thing. I don't want to see another 15 minutes of them saying quirky, fun stuff that's so witty and sarcastic. But it wasn't really a problem in this movie. And that's been a problem in some past movies in Marvel, is that it just becomes like all the characters are the same. They're all like silly, witty. Oh, they're so funny. Like, and none of them really feel all that different. But there's opportunity there. You can have people be funny in their own way. And anyways, I think that Marvel's figuring that out. And I think that this movie was good and it could have been great. I don't think it could have been the best. I don't think the plot was even remotely there for that. The bad guy, funny enough, was like just as bland as the bad guy of Guardians of the Galaxy, and basically like the exact same person, just like a generic Kree guy with a hammer, except it was a girl with a hammer, and also just as motivationless and uninteresting. Another thing that was confusing is, as someone who didn't watch the show for Miss Marvel, I didn't really understand what the bracer was. They make the bracer seem like it is the source of her ability, and it wasn't. So a friend of mine told me after the movie that he was like, no, she has powers because she's a mutant, but that's not what gives her her power. Her power comes from herself, and the bracer is just like a fun thing that her grandma gave her. I was like, oh, they made it seem like the bracers were the power. And so that was a little bit confusing. She dies in just as dumb of a way as the guy in Guardians of the Galaxy. She gets the bracers and disintegrates. So, but overall, honestly, it's a good time. I didn't regret getting a ticket. I didn't regret spending the time in the movie. I liked the runtime. I thought it was decently paced. I thought the characters were fun. I thought the storyline was fine. Like, this is at some point we got to stop whining about every single movie, right? So this is an improvement over some of the ones in the past. This is definitely improvement of a lot of the TV shows they've been coming out with. So I think that we got to look at things a little bit more, less critical about every single little thing. And not everything has to be a masterpiece. And sometimes you can have a fun kind of throwaway movie, not necessarily throwaway movie, but just a fun popcorn flick, guys. Not everything has to be Endgame. You know, it doesn't have to be, Dark Knight. It's fine to have just kind of a fun movie every once in a while. Anyways, that's kind of how I felt about the film. As someone who hasn't seen, like I said, the Miss Marvel show, I was impressed, or Secret Invasion. I was impressed that they seem to explain almost everything pretty well in that hour 45, without having to watch the TV shows. So that was nice. Anyways, would love to hear what you guys think of the movie and what kind of my opinions on it. Go ahead and leave a comment, leave a thumbs up or down, and subscribe if you want to hear some more movie reviews. They don't come often, but when they come, they're there. Thanks, guys, and I will come out with a new video later. Thanks.